What's up, everybody, and welcome to the JL Fit Life podcast. I'm your host, Jackie Lavadia, and man, oh man, we are going to dive into some things here that I think are just really important to understand, especially for most people who consume on the internet and are always bombarded with different ads and things like that, because there is a concept to this that is really important to understand in terms of not just your health and not just things pertaining to your health, but also like the consumption of goods and things like that too. So how you spend your money, how you can kind of get like almost brainwashed into buying things that you consistently see on social media. So why I'm diving into this is I was recently asked by a client who was like, listen, we're in this New Year's kind of season. I mean, we're not now, but this happened a few weeks ago. And she's like, I'm getting bombarded by all of these ads for different things that they're telling me that I need. And when it comes to progress, are these things actually worthwhile or are they not? So she was asking me my opinion on these things and whether they would actually be beneficial for her goals or not. So there is obviously a lot of nuance to this too, because I don't want to come in and say, this is bad, don't bother, whatever. It kind of depends, right? And I think this goes for a lot of things, even if they are a trend or not. But it's worthwhile to dive into so we can understand and make better decisions when it comes to what's right for us and what's not. So I do want to open this by saying that like things like wellness trends are not new. They're like, it has started, I don't want to say the beginning of time, but I'm sure as our society became more technologically advanced and as we kind of understood what marketing is and the psychology behind marketing, there's always been trends. And this is because, and there's a lot that goes there's a lot that goes behind this for the why the trends kind of come and go. But they aren't new, but they just kind of change outfits, right? Like there's always some kind of trend that's going on. And then in a few months, maybe a couple of years, they die off and you never hear of them again, right? So as somebody who's a millennial, some of the trends that I remember seeing were things like detox teas. There was the vibration dumbbell that came out a few years ago that looked really awkward. Things like certain kinds of diets, right? Like all kinds of diets have come out over the years and they're still coming out as well. But I do feel like there's more so like a surge in products as opposed to diets from what I have seen in the past few years anyway. But yeah, the 2000s were riddled with different kinds of diets to try. So every trend kind of promises the same thing, you know, faster results, less effort. And, you know, that's the appeal is that we are kind of pulled into these ideas because they sound like the magic thing that feel like we've been missing, especially when we haven't been seeing progress and we're kind of in that vulnerable standstill. So this episode is not about shaming people, but it's about understanding why we're drawn to shortcuts, why these kinds of things work, and to get curious and compassionate about these circumstances, but also for you, like the listener, to have these things in the forefront of your mind as you're scrolling Instagram and you're seeing all of these things pop up and wondering if they are things that you need to try or not. So there's usually like natural kind of riff prompts, things that come up in marketing for people who have maybe tried so many things and nothing's working, for people who are just tired and are not lazy kind of thing. The industry essentially benefits from people being in their vulnerable state, not seeing the progress that they want to see because of all the different things that they've been trying, but also tired, burnt out, confused, so the industry really benefits on confusion and people not understanding what needs to happen in order for them to reach the outcomes that they really want to reach. So this is kind of the psychology behind fitness marketing, okay? Essentially, your brain as like a survival skill is wired to conserve energy. So if you think about how we were in like caveman days, right? You needed to conserve your energy in order to survive. You couldn't afford to be tired all the time, because if you were in a dangerous situation or anything like that, where, we would have been hunted by freaking saber-toothed tigers or whatever, you can't afford to be tired all the time. So your brain is constantly looking for easy way outs in terms of conserving energy. However, the thing is, we don't live in caveman times anymore. We live in busybody, very stressful, most people are burnt out kind of times, where we are also kind of exposed to more food and more convenience than ever before. And that's where things can get really difficult, is when you are trying to reach a certain outcome. Say you're trying to get healthier, you're trying to lose body fat, but you're consistently tired, and you're consistently in an environment where you are exposed to all of these different convenient foods that also happen to be very, very palatable and taste really, really good. So in an attempt for your brain to conserve energy, especially when you're tired and you don't want to cook and all of these things, it's very easy to get roped into your brain telling you and kind of seeking out this like quick fix of dopamine from the convenient foods that taste really very, very good, even if they aren't nutritionally good for you. But they're still going to give you some sense of energy, right? Because they do contain calories and all of those things. But we're not thinking about how, certain kinds of calories and certain kinds of foods are not going to make you feel your best self. So anyway, there's that piece of it, right? So when we are consistently trying to conserve energy and we are exposed to marketing that says things like, oh, only 10 minutes a day, or do this without having to sweat, or what have you, obviously your brain is like, oh, yes, please. It feels kind of emotionally relieving to see something and be like, oh my gosh, I only have to do this for 10 minutes a day and I can still get the results that I want. Right? Like, of course it sounds appealing. Of course it sounds like it's too good to be true. Ease is often marketed as like intelligence or efficiency, or like that one more thing that you need to do in order to see the results that you want. We want that like instant gratification. Our brains want that piece. So intellectually, we can understand consistency, but emotionally, we can also struggle with that waiting. We can also struggle with, we know that we need to be consistent. We know that we need to give ourselves time, but we can really struggle with that waiting piece. So we're constantly looking for other things that may or may not be more effective and more worth our while during that time period. So when at some point, a lot of people really start to think, that something is wrong with you, when nothing is actually wrong with you. You just haven't been consistent enough, or you haven't given yourself enough time. However, marketing will also take advantage of this. They will take advantage of kind of insinuating that something is wrong with you, and that you're broken, and they will use language. Apologies for that. If you saw me on video, my son made a little appearance there. Okay, so where was I? So basically, yeah. Sometimes we feel like there's something wrong with us when we're not seeing the progress that we want, and marketing will take advantage of that. So they kind of will like subtly make hints towards something being wrong with you by using language like blocked lymph nodes, stubborn fat, slow metabolism, and it really creates a sense of dependency on these external fixes, right? So it's a way of like just like reeling you in and making it feel like you need whatever they're selling. There's also something called science washing, where scientific terms are kind of used without context within a marketing procedure. So words like cortisol, lymphatic, metabolism, that when words like that are used, that kind of increases a sense of trust in that brand or in that marketing piece. And most consumers don't have the tools to evaluate these claims. Like, most people don't know how to look into the research about whether their claims are actually reliable or not. So you kind of have this sense of trust of like, oh, well, they know what they're talking about, or things like that. They might even say something like clinically proven or doctor approved or something like that, where we don't know who has actually approved this or not. So these are all things to really consider when you are looking through Instagram or Facebook and you're getting bombarded with marketing things. And when you feel the pull to like buy something, you really need to evaluate where you are in whatever your goals are and also what they're saying. I think there's also a lot of nuance in terms of what I find too is that a lot of products they might not be terrible in terms of, like from a well-being perspective. For example, a certain kind of supplement that tells you it's a fat loss supplement and will help you lose a bunch of weight. I don't think most of the time, nine times out of 10, it doesn't actually perform to allow you to lose weight, but it might have other benefits. It might be chock full of different vitamins. It might have some sort of nutritional value to it that might make you feel better, but whether or not it will actually help you lose weight would be what I would be questioning, is the actual outcome of using that product. So there's the other side of marketing too, where they also use influencers and like quote unquote social proof, right? So if you see a fit influencer with a fit body, they kind of assume credibility. Like, you see their body like that, they use the certain product. It also is kind of a way of building trust and being like, well, if they look like that on that product, then that must work, right? But it's generally sponsored content, and it's not actual lived experience, because that influencer is getting paid to say those scripts and to give you that kind of feedback, even though that product is not what made them that fit. We also have to remember that the algorithms on Instagram and Facebook reward extremes. They don't reward nuance. The thing with nuance is that it's not exciting, it's not clickbaity. It's not going to elicit engagement. My podcast here is probably not going to be the most popular podcast because it's all about nuance and like the different pieces of things. Like, I'm not giving you a hard and straight black and white answer. Is this good or is this not, and why? I am giving you more information to consider when you're making best decisions for yourself. So once you kind of see this pattern in marketing, you can't unsee it. Like, you do open your mind to questions. You do approach it from an open-minded perspective in terms of whether or not a product is actually going to be right for you. And it is something that I think is a really good tool to build on from a cognitive perspective and a psychological perspective when you are kind of deciding on what to purchase and why, right? Like, we really want to know why we're purchasing something and whether or not it's actually going to be beneficial. So let's dive into a couple of actual trends that are happening right now and whether or not they would actually be beneficial for you. So the biggest thing that I was asked about was vibration plates. It's a huge thing right now. I kind of laugh because, like, I've seen videos of influencers like doing, I don't know, they'll do like their like a day in their life kind of thing, and literally they're just like standing on their vibration plate with their red mask light on, or their red light mask on, and they just look insane to me. Like, it's just like, you do you, girl, but oh my gosh, like if people from 20, 30 years ago saw what we were doing right now, you definitely would feel like you are living in the future for sure. It's just very funny to me. So so I was asked about vibration plates, and then I was actually asked about walking pads. So, and I thought that was an interesting one, but we're going to dive into both and kind of what they do, why they are beneficial in their own ways, and what to kind of expect out of them. So whole body vibration plates, what they essentially do is they elicit reflex muscle contraction. So because you're standing on this plate that is vibrating, your muscles are going to contract, right? It's kind of like a nervous system response, not like a true training stimulus. So this is where, vibration plates can be kind of sticky because we see them marketed as a fat loss tool. I have seen them as a tool for building bone density and things like that, which I think is a great perspective. However, it's from that perspective, I really don't believe that vibration plates, actually, I don't believe, I know that vibration plates are not going to replace exercise. And I think that's what the intrigue is here, is a lot of people are using vibration plates as a way to replace exercise when that is not what they're meant for. So yes, you're going to have those muscle contractions, which can be similar to the contractions that we're doing with weight training, but it's not the same. It's similar, but it's not the same. They can be helpful. Where I would say that vibration plates would be helpful would be more from like a rehabilitation kind of perspective. If you are someone who has just had surgery, if you are like relearning how to balance yourself or anything like that, older adults who want to do some balance training, I think a vibration plate would be really, really beneficial for that. Because it's so convenient to have that there and have a safe space to practice these things. It can also be super beneficial for somebody who is severely deconditioned. So what I mean by that is somebody who probably hasn't moved out of bed in a very, very, very long time. I would be thinking of people who are morbidly obese and have not come out of bed. If they all of a sudden are wanting to get healthier or need that rehabilitation because they've been deconditioned for so long, a vibration plate might actually be beneficial if that is within their realm, kind of thing. I would also say for somebody who is limited by pain, it might be a good start for them. But the vibration plate would be like a bridge to actual exercise, right? It's not something that you're going to consistently use for years and years and years and years down the road. It's something that can be a tool to help get yourself strong enough, to help get yourself confident enough to then start taking the next step to get actually moving and doing other things. So marketing really overreaches with vibration plates because they claim that it helps with fat loss. They claim that it helps build muscle. They claim that it can detox and help with lymphatic drainage. And as I said, there's a lot of kind of like workout replacement framing, and that's where I'm like, no, that's not how this is going to work. But the nuance is they're not useless. They're not magical. Context matters, and there's like some small benefits that we can definitely get from a vibration plate, but there's other ways that you can get even like those same benefits, but in more like qualitative kind of in a more qualitative kind of way. So lymphatic drainage, for example, it might promote lymphatic drainage because of the contractions in your muscles by standing on the vibration plate. But guess what else can promote lymphatic drainage? Walking, strength training, like you're doing the exact same thing. But the difference is with a vibration plate, you cannot implement progressive overload on that. Whereas with weight training and walking, you can. And if you're not implementing progressive overload, you're not going to be systematically building muscle and therefore systematically building bone density. You might get some benefit from it, but over the long term, you're going to have to switch to strength training and walking or cardio on some level. And I don't want to totally invalidate how a vibration plate can make people feel, because I have heard a lot of people say they feel great after they're on their vibration plate. And you know what? I'm totally happy for you that works for you and makes you feel really good. And there's importance to that as well. If it makes you feel good, then by all means, 10 minutes a day on your vibration plate is not going to harm you. But we do need to understand that there is nuance with this in terms of the outcomes that you're looking for. So it's not going to replace exercise. It's not going to replace all of the other pillars of health that we know work and we know will benefit you for years and years and years on end. It's not the same thing. So this is where we have to look at the opportunity, the trade-off, right? So if you're looking to get healthier, you're looking to lose fat, is a vibration plate something that is worth your money? Because they're not cheap. So are you going to get the your ROA? Is there going to be a return of investment? ROI, sorry. Is there going to be a return of investment when you think about the financial piece of spending money on a vibration plate versus the outcomes that you actually want? Or can you take that money and spend it on, say, coaching, or spend it on a legitimate program that will actually allow you to implement progressive overload and understand what that is, and learn about your nutrition so that you can build out that kind of intellectual tool so that you have lifelong skills that are going to allow you to continue to see the progress that you actually want. So these are where we need to really evaluate these products in terms of where they're actually needed and how they're actually going to benefit you. So yeah, those are kinds of things that we do want to think about. And again, it's not that there's no benefit, but depending on the outcome that you are looking for, depending on where you are in your life, there might be some benefits to it that are worthwhile to you. So walking pads. So it was interesting because I asked a question on Instagram asking people what they want to know about in terms of health and fitness trends, and somebody asked walking pads, and I never really saw it as a trend, but in all honesty, it kind of is. A lot of people are using walking pads, and you see a lot of people in their videos using them. So what is it about walking pads? So walking pads, the thing with walking pads is that they do support a behavior. It's not the walking pad itself that is going to make a difference in outcomes, but it supports the behavior of walking. So where vibration plates kind of promise outcomes, a walking pad supports a behavior. And there's a big difference because it's our behaviors we want to change in order to reach certain outcomes. So walking kind of requires our own participation, right? You're not letting a machine do something for you just by standing on it. You are actually walking on a walking pad. And that kind of movement drives the adaptation that we need in order to see results. So walking in itself is a very, very, very powerful thing for many different reasons, because there's so many benefits to walking that honestly, walking is one of the most underrated things that you can do for your health. We have our NEAT that we can look at. So NEAT is non-exercise, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So NEAT is our NEAT. And our daily expenditure. So that is something that walking really contributes to, and NEAT is one of the bigger things that we expend energy on a daily basis. Walking is also a way that we can regulate our blood sugar. There's so many mental health benefits to it. And it's so simple that there's a lot of sustainability to be said about the actual act of walking and making sure that we're moving all the time. There's not a ton of friction when it comes to walking because it's not something that you need to go to the gym for. You can walk outside, you can walk the hallways of your work, you can go up and down stairs. There's so many ways of implementing walking and more movement, right? It fits into real life. It doesn't require motivational peaks or anything like that. And in doing so, that encourages repetition and encourages consistency. And the thing about walking is the more we walk, the more of an active person we will actually become. So what I mean by that is even if you are somebody who works out on a pretty regular basis, which is amazing, the unfortunate thing is a 30-minute workout doesn't replace 12 hours of sitting, right? We want to be walking. We want to be moving even outside of those workouts in order to achieve the outcomes that we actually want, but also to implement the behaviors that will support those outcomes too. So that's why a walking pad is so beneficial, because it's something that is convenient that we can keep in our house. You can roll it underneath your couch. That we can now pull out, especially, say, hey, Canadians right now, we've been having minus 20-degree weather outside. It's kind of hard to get outside to go for a walk. Walking pads are an amazing tool to have as a replacement for that. If you're somebody who sits down all day long and you're in an office, even for me as a coach, like the kind of ironic part of being an online health coach is that there's a lot of sitting involved. But something that I can do is actually answer my client check-ins while I'm on my walking pad. And that's something that's really helpful for me to make sure that I'm not being too sedentary during my day. It's also an easy way to kind of habit stack on things and make sure that I'm not losing time. So what I mean by that is I don't necessarily have to carve out an hour outside of all of the other things that I need to do in my day in order to go for a walk. I can do things while I'm walking. And that's the super convenient part about a walking pad is it's more of a behavior promotion rather than relying on a tool to do something for you. I hope that makes sense. So that's where I don't necessarily think, even if I thought a walking pad was a trend, I do think it's just another cool tool, a gadget that can be really, really helpful when it comes to behavior change. So I honestly don't think it's going to be a trend. I do think it is something that's going to be a long-term thing that will be around for a long, long time now that they're available and they're more affordable for people. And it's really it's honestly a blessing to have something like this come out, because it just removes some of the barriers that some people might face when it comes to movement. Yeah, so it's not really about the gadget, it's about the system, right? It's about implementing your own systems in order to get the outcome. So another concept I kind of wanted to touch on too, I was recently rereading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, and the very first chapter was oh man, I needed some of these reminders. And something that kind of ties in nicely with this is this term called the plateau of latent potential. So basically what that is the gap between effort and visible results. So there's always kind of a lull between, you're consistently implementing everything, you're tracking your food, you're going for walks, you're doing your workouts, you're getting a good night's sleep, but you're not seeing the results that you want fast enough, right? So they call it the valley of disappointment. And the thing is, even when there's not visible results that are happening, even if the scale's not moving, even if your body doesn't really seem to be visibly changing yet, it can take that one more day before you physically see something happen. So sometimes we can go for stretches of periods of time where we're not seeing anything and we're like, what is happening? And all it is that the outcomes aren't coming fast enough for us. But so they use this kind of idea they use this story in the chapter where they talk about this ice cube. So there's an ice cube sitting on a kitchen counter and the room is freezing. Like it's at 29 degrees Celsius. Fahrenheit, not Celsius. They're in the States. I'm in Canada. And what the goal is to get that ice cube to melt. So you increase the temperature to 30 degrees, 31 degrees, and nothing happens. So you get frustrated and you're like, what is happening? What aren't we doing right? Why isn't the ice cube melting? But then one day you decide to turn it up one more degree to 32 degrees and the ice cube starts to melt. And this is where we can kind of apply it to something like health and fitness, is where we're doing something, we're not seeing the results, but we're not giving ourselves enough time to see those results then come. And sometimes it just takes that little bit more time, that little bit more patience before we actually see the results that we really want. So the plateau of latent potential is an area that can be kind of dangerous because that's where a lot of people end up opting out. That's where they give up because they're like, well, this isn't doing anything. It's not worth my time. Like, why bother at all? It's also the time period where if you start seeing trends on Instagram or Facebook, you're probably going to be more prone to them. But it is something that is 1000% normal, and we all see it from time to time. We see it as beginners, we see it in the middle, and it doesn't mean that the things that you're implementing are not doing anything. It just means that you need to give yourself a little bit more time before the visible outcomes start to happen, before those tangible things start to appear. It doesn't mean that there's nothing happening, because on the inside, internally, there might be tons of things happening, but it just hasn't resulted in the outward things coming to light. So that's where we also want to kind of shed light on, because this is where your self-doubt creeps in. This is where your motivation might drop. This is where your self-trust starts to erode, right? Like these things might start happening because you're getting discouraged by the lack of visible results that you're hoping to see. So marketing really targets this phase because people are already doing the work, but they feel discouraged, and the products kind of promise to speed things up, or that they are the one thing that you're looking for that might be your magic answer. So most people don't quit because it isn't working. They quit because it isn't working yet, right? So remember that piece. It's not that it's not working. It's just that you haven't seen it yet. So when you're in that place, don't get discouraged, but remember that you're probably in the plateau of latent potential. The plateau of latent potential. You might be in the valley of disappointment right now, and at some point you're going to reach the end of the valley and you're going to start climbing that mountain. So a lot of things can end up being kind of purchased in those moments of self-doubt. It's not really like a starting point. It's kind of like an interruption to like the other things that you might have tried already, but then ultimately those products might just end up collecting dust in a corner somewhere, like a vibration plate. Whereas something like a walking pad is actually like supporting somebody who's trying to stay in the process, and help people remain consistent through that plateau. So this is where there's a huge difference between why we should focus more on the process of our work rather than the goal of our work. So goals and outcomes are obviously incredible to have because they are like that guiding star to what we're trying to do. Like they're giving us that guidance, but it's the process that is really honestly more important than the outcome itself, because we want to make sure that we enjoy the process. We want to make sure the process is realistic enough for us. And when we focus more on the process as opposed to the outcome, we're more likely to sustain it and stay consistent and stay the course and ultimately reach those outcomes at some point. But we've just kind of in refocusing on the outcome piece, we are kind of taking those timelines off of the goals. And the other part of that too is when we're so fixated on the goal, when we're so fixated on the outcome, and we have a disregard for the process, even if we reach that outcome, the likelihood of you being able to hold on to that outcome is almost next to nothing, because you don't have any sustainable process in place that is going to allow you to keep that outcome. So that's why we also don't want to get into that space of doing whatever it takes, because that extreme part of doing whatever it takes is not something that you're going to be able to sustain for the rest of your life. So that being said, that's why behavior change and supporting the process is way more beneficial. That's why walking pads, I would say, are an incredible kind of tool that we can always have in order to help sustain that behavior and sustain the process. And that's where it's really, really important for direction. Sorry, I'm just checking my notes to make sure I covered all of that, because I think I just went on a little bit of a tangent there. So examples of being more process focused would be something like focusing on implementing protein at meals, something like keeping tabs on your steps per day, something like how your sleep routine is and whether you're getting enough sleep and enough quality sleep. Process focus would be how consistent you are with your training, or how consistent you are with your recovery habits. Like, those are all pieces of the process that aren't necessarily dictating your outcome, but will help you get to that outcome for sure. Process wins long term because outcomes also fluctuate, right? Like, we always have different kinds of outcomes, but having a process kind of compound over time allows us to pivot the outcome, but always make sure that we have a strong way of getting there. Especially when it comes to health and fitness, because honestly, most outcomes that we want in health and fitness, whether it's fat loss, whether it's building muscle or strength or anything like that, they all still require all of the same pillars of health, but with some like more specific tweaks. But basically, you want all of these pillars of health to be happening so that you have a stronger chance of reaching the outcome that you're hoping for. So basically, trends sell outcomes, right? So all of that to be said, we're talking about outcome-based products versus process-based products. We talked about the potential, oh my goodness, I don't want to keep saying the potential for latent whatever, and I just missed it. Yeah. The process of latent potential. No, the plateau of latent potential. Oh my goodness. The plateau of latent potential, and how that impacts our processes and outcomes. It's very important to distinguish the difference and to understand when you're getting frustrated, and potentially the fact that if you're getting frustrated with your lack of outcome, it's because you're too focused on the outcome and not focused enough on the process. Processes essentially are also it's like a daily input, right? It's what you can actually control. They are repeatable actions that you can implement on a day-to-day basis. Where, oh my goodness, I'm losing myself here. Whereas when we focus on outcomes, they tend to fluctuate. Sorry, I am repeating myself now. I'm totally losing myself in my notes here. So anyway, yeah, most people aren't necessarily failing at what they're doing. They're just quitting when everything is getting to be really, really hard, and feeling frustrating because of where they're at in their process, basically. But they're seeing it as failure because they're not reaching the outcome that they actually want. So when things get boring because you're so consistent and it feels so mundane, that's actually where your progress essentially lives. Those phases are the most productive phases, and we don't need to be doing anything fancy or costly in order to reach the outcomes that we want. It's just a matter of getting through that valley of disappointment and getting through to the other end, knowing that you are doing all of the right things. And I think the thing that a lot of people doubt themselves on is whether they are doing the right things or not. And that's where, and like, I don't want to come back and be like, well, don't look at these trends because they're trying to sell you something. And then here I am trying to sell coaching. But when you're working with an actual person who sells coaching and who is actually invested in your time and well-being and has a good background and like education and experience on all of these things, then it's not about, buying the next product, but investing your time and your money in a person that can actually give you the direction that you need and who keeps tabs on you and actually talks to you and is not just giving you a cookie cutter program and saying, here you go, bye. You're actually like having a weekly conversation with this person who gives you the direction in terms of how ensuring that you are doing the right things and making sure you're being consistent enough. And somebody who, I always say, a coach is like a person who's on the outside looking into your life, because when you're living your life, when you're in the thick of it, it's really hard sometimes to see the bigger picture. You can get so zeroed in on certain things of your life that it's hard for you to take a step back and see what's actually panning out. But a coach who's not living your life and can look at your life objectively and look at your behaviors is somebody that can be worthwhile to really have like an overview of what's actually happening and where you can improve upon in order to help you implement these really effective processes and ultimately get the outcomes that you want. And be that kind of like Jiminy Cricket in your ear to tell you what's right and what's wrong, or like anything like that. It's funny, I still have clients who aren't even clients anymore, but they still tell me that they hear my voice in their ear sometimes of what they should do or what they shouldn't do. And I think that's awesome. So at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need more tools, especially if you have things like fat loss goals or strength goals or things like that. But you do need better systems. It's not something that, like, you personally probably do not need fixing. Not very many people actually have something that's wrong with them, but maybe some things that need to be explored a little bit more in depth so that you have a better understanding of what is affecting you and what you can improve upon and adjust upon in order to see the outcomes that you want. But you do need patience and self-trust, because I think that's what a lot of people essentially lack. So, anyways, the goal here isn't to chase faster results. It's to build a life that supports your health long term. Essentially, that's what everyone is looking for. If you are looking to lose fat, you want to be still supporting your health first and foremost, and making sure you're doing this in a sustainable way so that you can not only feel your best self and feel confident in your clothes and all of those great things that come with these outcomes, but also to make sure that we are reaching a sense of longevity and strength that will kind of guarantee that we can live a very long and healthy and high quality of life to the best of our ability. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment on this. Please feel free to give this a 5-star review. I know that there were some hiccups in here, so I apologize for that, but ultimately the messaging was here. I will be linking the references to research articles if you're interested in checking those out, so that will be in the show notes. But otherwise, I think that was the gist of my little spiel today. I hope that you all have a great day. Be sure to check out JL Fit Life on Instagram and Facebook. So all of those links will be in the show notes as well. But otherwise, we'll see you next time.